Hello there, audience. Hello, audience. I just had to stop and kill a spider. This summer, I decided to read more TikTok slop because, I don't know, you guys seem to enjoy it when I do that. Those videos get more views and people enjoy me doing it. The main reason I don't do it that much is because it's kind of all the same. You know, we have romantasy, which gets big over there, which is just bad fantasy with some hardcore sex scenes thrown in. Or there's dark romance, which is usually just a bad thriller with some sex scenes thrown in. Or workplace romance, which is just a bad attempt at aping The Office, but with some hardcore sex scenes thrown in. Or hockey romance, or more broadly, sports romance, which is, those ones tend to be the most normal, at least from what I've seen, but those are still just bad romance with hardcore sex scenes thrown in. Or mafia romance, which, look, you can probably guess what that is by this point, okay? They're all kind of the same. It's just romance, or it's not even really romance, it's just porn. It's smut, but it's dressed up as romance, and then they dress the romance up as if it's something else, because they're ashamed of it. So while I was looking for some more slop to consume so I can entertain all of you with it, I read Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, and it's actually not that bad. Yeah, this one is a little bit different. It's not great, however, it was kind of fun. You know, the author knew that it was dumb, and she just had fun with it.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
Now, just to be clear, it's still pretty much just there for the spice. You know, it's just there for people to, enjoy themselves while reading. But the story and characters are kind of enjoyable because the author knew that it was stupid and she just had fun with it. She didn't treat it like it was some deep, introspective piece of high art or something. Like, the author knew it was dumb, and she knew what the audience is there for, so she just kind of wrote it out and had some fun with it. The characters are weirdos who do weird things. You know, it's not some deep romance where you're supposed to go, oh, that's so cute, I'm so happy for them. Like, no, they are in love by the end, sure, and they like each other, and I guess on some level, I'm glad that they're doing all right, but it's not meant to be a super deep, complex relationship by any means. It's just there for porn, and the author knew that. It is pretty much impossible for me to talk about this book at all without going into spoilers. All I can say for the non-spoiler stuff is that there are two leads. One is named Allie and one is named Josh, and they fall in love, but before they fall in love, Josh starts stalking Allie, and then when they're dating, he's just wearing a mask and doesn't tell her who he is.
Okay, but that's worse. I mean, you do get how that's worse, right?
That's like the first half of the book. Anyways, now we're going into spoilers, so just be aware.
What? No! Racism? Not today!
So as I said, this book is about a woman named Allie, who works as a nurse, and a man named Josh, who works as some sort of cybersecurity expert. I don't know. He's a vague computer hackery guy who does smart computer stuff, and he's not his own boss, but he works from home and has a very flexible schedule and makes a lot of money, so he can kind of just be there whenever Allie wants him to be there, and he has a lot of money to do stuff with, and yeah, it's every woman's dream, I guess. However, outside of his job as a hobby, Josh makes thirst traps of himself, where he is shirtless and covered in fake blood and wearing a mask. Okay. Allie is a really big fan of his thirst traps, and Josh, through his computer hacking magic, it may as well just be frickin' magic, man. All the computer stuff in this has... I'm not an expert on software programming or anything like that, but from what I can tell, it's all just magic. Okay, he does what the plot needs to do based on his computer hackery stuff. But anyways, Allie's a really big fan of his, and she comments on his videos and stuff, and he, through his computer hacking magic, is able to find out who she is in real life and everything. And what a coincidence, she's also kind of sort of dating his roommate. Like, they're not exactly dating, they just are hooking up now and again, and then Josh starts stalking Allie, and then he breaks into her house, and then the two of them start dating. I know that's standard fare in this type of story, but at least in this book, they acknowledge that it's really weird, and they also make it clear that everything that goes on between them is consensual. You know, there's not anything like in 50 Shades of Grey where they're like ignoring safe words and stuff. Like, no, everything that happens here, whether I find it off-putting or not, it is all 100% consensual. Both parties are into it. And I just want to take a moment to add that Josh's roommate, because he's not actually dating Allie, he doesn't really care if she has sex with other people. And it's implied that he's off having sex with other people too. They're just occasionally hooking up with each other when they're bored and horny. And that's such a small detail, but it was the first part of the book where I realized, the author actually thought this through and is trying to have the characters behave in a somewhat more realistic manner.
That's good.
See, in most books of this type, in order to make it like more romantic or spicier or whatever, Allie would be cheating on her boyfriend with Josh, and somehow the boyfriend would be the bad guy in that situation. You know, like, remember that terrible Netflix show, Sex Life? That's basically the entire plot of that show, is that the main character is cheating on her husband, who she has 2 children with, and her husband's the bad guy because he gets upset at her for that. God, I hate that show so freaking much, man. And I hate all the other books and stuff that do similar stuff because, like, okay, if you're going to have the protagonist be unfaithful to their partner, you have to either have it be a story where the protagonist is just not really portrayed as a good person. Like, it's not exactly the focus of the show, but The Sopranos comes to mind. You know, Tony Soprano cheats on his wife a lot, but Tony Soprano's a very bad person, so that's okay. And by that I mean it's okay in terms of storytelling and character development. You can either do that, or you can just have the main character break up with them early on because, like, their relationship just wasn't working out. You know, it was falling apart, whatever. So the fact that Lights Out has just a small detail where Allie's kind of, sort of, date, hookup, whatever, just doesn't really care if she has sex with Josh or anyone else. It was the first part of this book where I was like, oh, okay, this author is actually tweaking things a little bit and making the formula her own and is not making me hate the main characters, because I would have hated Allie and Josh if she had like a perfectly good relationship going on and she decided to ruin it and be a jerk to this perfectly nice guy, which is what often happens. Hey, did I mention that Josh's dad was a famous serial killer? Because Josh's dad is a famous serial killer. It's actually a minor plot point that Allie is not into true crime stuff, because Josh has said that in the past, anytime he dates a woman who's into true crime, she immediately knows who his dad is, and they get off-put by him. Look, like I said, this is weird, the characters act weird, and the author knew that. Now, remember, like I said, Josh stalks Allie and then later breaks into her house, and then they start doing spicy things. And throughout all of this, he keeps the mask on. And she's like a fan of his videos, so she's like, oh my god, that famous TikToker who makes weird thirst traps of himself is breaking into my house, and we're doing spicy things together. This is awesome. But she doesn't actually know who he is until about halfway through the book. Like, the first half of the book is just them kind of toying around with each other and him trying to keep his identity hidden. But around the time she finds out his real identity is when the real plot begins. So like I said earlier, Allie is a nurse, and a guy named Bradley Bloom, who is a serial rapist billionaire, is at the hospital where she works, which I just gotta say, a serial rapist billionaire would normally be like the hero of this type of book, you know? He would be a serial rapist, but because he's a billionaire and because he's hot, it would be okay. And like, no, all the non-con stuff is fine because she was into it afterward, you know? Like 50 Shades of Grey or 365 Days, like that type of shit. You know, normally Bradley Bloom would be the hero of this type of book, but he's not. He's the villain in this one. He gets into an argument with Allie and then finds out who she is, and then later he comes to her house, and Josh is there with her, thankfully, and they manage to catch him and subdue him and tie him up. And most likely he was planning to sexually assault her. He was also probably planning on killing her because they find implements on him which imply that he was gonna, like, kill her and dispose of her body. And later we do get confirmation that Bradley Bloom, I love that name so much. Later we get confirmation that Bradley Bloom was a straight-up serial killer. So Allie and Josh subdue him, they tie him up, And they're thinking, okay, we can't just let him go to the police because they're not going to punish him. He's a literal billionaire. He's from a very wealthy family, and he's gotten away with sexually assaulting people before. So they decide to tie him up, and then they're going to take him and leave him at the house of his most recent victim's family. And it's implied that they think that her family is going to kill him, but then they'll just be, I don't know, their hands will be washed of it, I guess they think. That it's not really a great idea. However, while they're doing this, Josh accidentally kills him. And the way he does that is like he's putting duct tape over his mouth to keep him from making noise, but he accidentally puts it over his nose too and suffocates him. How do you fuck up that badly, Josh?
Some people are really fucking stupid.
But don't worry, because for the first time in the entire book, Allie mentions that she has an estranged uncle who is in the mafia. Like I said, this came completely out of nowhere. I don't even think it's mentioned earlier in the book. Like, the closest we get to a hint about this is mentioning that Allie's family is Italian, which I don't think that qualifies as implying that she has relatives in the mafia, because if that's what the author was intending, then that's extremely racist. But yeah, the rest of the book is just them covering up their murder, or maybe manslaughter. I don't know, I feel like a lawyer could probably argue either way, but I'm not a lawyer, I don't know the law that well. Anyways, the rest of the book is just them covering up their murder. And, like, they literally drive to her uncle's house with a dead body in the trunk, and they just say, "Hey man, we killed somebody, can you help us get rid of the body?" And at first, he's rightfully mad at them, because again, Allie is his family, sure, but she's also just coming in out of nowhere after not seeing him in years and asking for favors. And this is a pretty big favor. He straight up says, like, the feds might be watching my house and you come here with a fucking dead body, what's wrong with you? But then they explain who it is and what he was planning on doing, and her uncle's like, okay, you know what, guy had it coming. So him and his mafia buddies agree to help them out, and they help them get rid of the body. And he doesn't ask anything in exchange, which is probably a good thing because you don't want to be in debt to members of the mafia. Like, I know books like this, the authors tend to not know anything about the mafia at all. Like, they don't understand the hierarchy or anything, so it doesn't come right out and say what rank Allie's uncle is in the organization. I think he would be a capo, just based on how much authority he has, how many people he has working with him, and stuff like that. But, you know, again, authors, if you're doing a mafia romance or anything, you can literally just browse the Wikipedia page a little bit. Like, this table, this chart shows the hierarchy. Just read through it a little. But the only thing that her uncle asks in return for literally helping her get away with murder is that she comes to his house and has dinner with his family once a month. And Allie spends so much time whining about this. Like, again, Allie, I think you got out of this pretty good. You're not dead. You didn't get sexually assaulted. You got away with murder. I don't think you can ask for more. The closest thing we have to a climax here is when Josh and some mafia dudes go to Brad's house, Bradley Bloom's house. Again, I just love that name. To, try and make it look like he ran off. And while they're there, they find evidence that he was a serial killer, like there's rotting bodies and stuff. So Josh sets off the alarm and brings the police in, and him and all the mafia people barely get away because he did this without telling them about it, which was really stupid, man. But they get away, and then the police find everything, and they don't find Bradley Bloom's body, but it's implied that they think he fled the country somewhere, so they're just going to be looking for him. And then the epilogue is basically just one giant spice session. I'm not going into detail about it, but it involves Josh wearing a mask and giving Allie a head start so she can run away into the woods, and then he chases her down and catches her. That's all I'm gonna say. That's also pretty much what Ramsay Bolton used to do in Game of Thrones, except in that it was a lot less kinky and a lot more psychotic. So, again, I kind of liked this book. It's self-aware because it knows it's trash. It knows it's not romantic high art, and it knows the audience is just here for porn. It's not a romance story, really. It's just two weirdos who match each other's freak, and it's kind of fun. You know, I wasn't into the sex scenes because, again, without going into detail, it's just stuff I'm not really into is covered here, but everything is totally consensual, that's made clear, and I don't know, what else can you really ask for? It's two weirdos who are matching each other's freak. Do I recommend it? That's hard to say. That is really hard to say, because again, I'm just not into these types of books at all. I guess if you're looking for smut, then sure, you could do worse than this. If you're not really looking for smut, if you're looking for an actual thriller or an actual romance, it's kind of hard for me to say, like, because this one was kind of fun. I did laugh at a few points, but I felt like I was laughing with the book more than at it, and while it's not particularly long, if you're looking for something that's like so bad it's good, or something that's just kind of goofy and fun, I feel like you would have to get past all the sex stuff and some of the darker stuff, because I'm not really mentioning it here, but it does go into some detail about like what Josh's dad did as a serial killer, and it gets kind of dark and unpleasant at a few points, so you know, just that might be a big hurdle for you to overcome if you're just looking for something goofy and kind of fun, but I don't know, like, I don't know how to recommend this book, or if I can recommend it. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, because it's not my cup of tea, it's not something I would look for, but I did have some fun while reading it. I don't know, I really don't know if I can recommend it or not. Honestly, I just appreciate the self-awareness, but sometimes that's all it takes. So thank you everyone for watching. Rate the video, comment, subscribe to my channel, check out my merchandise, all that other stuff I'm supposed to say. Have a lovely day. Look forward to me hopefully reading more of this crap in the future. Goodbye. Hello there, friends. You watched this far. You know who I am. You see all these names here? These are the names of my patrons. My $10 and up patrons are Arthur D. Gonzalez Martin, Brother Santodes, Carolina Clay, Chibs Ahoy, Jace Spades, Lexi DeLorme, Lord Tiebreaker, Michael and Katie Hake, Mr. A5013, Proscriptions of Zhuojang, Psych XS, Slumbering Jellyfish, Observing Outer Space, Tesla Shark, Toa Michael, Vevictus, and Wesley. Without these guys, I could not do what it is I do. If you want to get your name here, then consider donating to my Patreon. If you don't feel like doing that, you can also become a YouTube channel member, get access to exclusive videos once a month. You also get early access to all my regular videos. But if that doesn't appeal to you, or you just, for whatever reason, don't feel like doing it, like this video, comment on it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, share the video around, that helps immensely. You can also check out my merchandise store down below. I got t-shirts and stuff for sale. Buy them before, you know, the tariffs completely render them unaffordable for everybody. Goodbye.